Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ann Arbor District Library. Thank you for coming out on, I'm just going to call it a balmy evening. Like, wow, spring is here. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, sorry. While I get my phone in order. Thank you to our partners, Literati Bookstore, who always bring us such wonderful events. So they are out there, outside the room, selling books, which are available for purchase during or after the event. So we are going to have a conversation between our two authors tonight, J.C. Peterson and Erin Hahn. I'm assuming that most of you know who they are, but just in case, forgive me while I portrait or landscape mode my phone. To give an intro, J.C. Peterson lives in Denver, Colorado with her husband and two small sons. She earned her degree in journalism from MSU and is an award-winning journalist. And so Being Mary Bennet is your first novel and Lola at Last is your second. Awesome, okay. And Erin Hahn is a local author. She lives outside of Ann Arbor and writes for a YA audience. And her novels include You'd Be Mine More Than Maybe and Never Saw You Coming, as well as the adult romance Built to Last. So we're going to have a reading, a conversation, and then JC is going to be signing books over at this table after the presentation. We are going to have a Q&A portion before the signing, and I'm going to be running around the room with the microphone to give to you. We have folks who are going to be watching this on recording and live stream, and we want to make sure they can hear the questions. And I think with that, I will hand it over to our authors. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I feel like almost everybody knows me as Jenny, so go ahead and call me Jenny. I'm so happy that you came out tonight. Lola at Last is my second book, and it's been so much fun just to see my Lydia Bennet go out into the world and wreak havoc and hopefully find people who love her like I do. So I'm so happy that Erin came to talk with me tonight about
Thank you for having me.
writing
Yeah.
and this book. So I am going to do a little reading from Lola at Last, and I'm gonna try and do it while holding a microphone, so fingers crossed, everybody. So this is from just a little bit of what the book is about. If you haven't read it, Lola at Last is about my Lydia Bennet character as she is forced to spend a summer in the California wilderness hiking and camping. And she obviously goes into this being like, have you guys met me? I'm not gonna like this. This is not gonna go well. So her first time doing the Hike Like a Girl program, she shows up not into it. So this is from that. And we'll see. After much thought and consideration, I go with the gold lame high tops. I might be forced to go hiking, but I still have some dignity. According to the horrifically cheery welcome email from Georgia Drake, I'm immediately suspicious of anyone who's this excited about forests. Hike Like a Girl meets at a picnic spot west of San Jose. I've been told to look for the orange VW bus, which no thank you. A surfer once tried to hit on me at Half Moon Bay, and I was nearly tempted until I saw him walk back to a gross camper and realized he was living in it. Like, where do you go to the bathroom, sir? So when I pull up to Georgia's orange VW bus and see her handing out t-shirts from the side of it, I mean, all signs point to yuck. There are 5 girls hovering around her, sort of introducing themselves and tugging the branded tees over tank tops. No one else is wearing gold lame high tops, or a floral romper, or a wide-brimmed black felt hat. I can confidently say I am going to hate this. Lola! Georgia jumps out of the open sliding door of her bus/home and strides over to me. She walks like her brother and has the same peachy pale skin. Strike one against Georgia. I met her at Lindy and Will's wedding, obviously, but she pulls me into the type of hug you reserve for old friends. Her shock of wavy brown hair gets all up in my face, and a few strands of it stick to my lip gloss when she pulls away. She drags me over to the group. Everyone, this is the last member of our crew, Lola. I rub Georgia's hair germs off my face and say, hey. The 5 girls just smile and wave, even though I'm giving them every clue that I'm here under duress. It's still and quiet under the blue-green shadows of the eucalyptus tree, and it makes me want to crawl out of my skin. Everyone is staring. Is this over yet? "We've already introduced ourselves," says a girl wearing hideous brown hiking boots. She's got the sort of posture that reminds me of the overachievers at Crenshaw Day. Like, the clipboard isn't there, but it's there. "I thought it was just the 5 of us, but we must have been super tight with the application rankings, I guess. Let's all go around again and—" "Hold on, Beth," Georgia says, jumping back out of her orange bus with a wadded-up t-shirt in her hands. "We'll do proper intros in a second." "Ha! Guess you're not the boss around here, Beth." I immediately decide to launch a personal vendetta against Beth. My heart warms the tiniest bit for Georgia, but then she attempts to toss me the t-shirt, and it freezes right back over. I watch the tee bump my elbow and fall to the ground. "Gotta be a bit quicker on your feet around here." She eyes my shoes. "What size do you wear?" 8? Same size as me. Want to borrow a more appropriate shoe?" I look down at her appropriate footwear and cringe. "I'm good." She blinks at me and barrels on. "Okay then, that's your Hike Like a Girl tee, Lola, and I've got a bunch of other goodies that we'll use out on the trail." "These are voluntary, right?" I grab the tee and hold it out for inspection. But Georgia ignores me and claps her hands twice to get our attention. Strike 2. "Okay, girls, welcome to a life-changing summer." A shiver works its way around the group, but I stop that shit dead. No matter if you're here because you're working hard toward a tech career, or if you love nature like me, or I interrupt because of some light arson. The Chinese-American girl next to me scoots away. Georgia laughs nervously. "The point is," she says, trying to regain control of the conversation, "no matter what brought you here, out on the trail, we're all the same, and we're all in this together. So, first," she holds up a finger and jogs around the back of her bus and returns with an armful of sticks. "Is this the part where we pick one name and club them to death? Because I vote Beth." Georgia moves around the circle, handing them out, choosing each stick according to the girl's height, so they come up to our ribs. Mine looks like a low-rent wizard staff, all gnarled and knotted, but the wood is pale and feels almost glossy under my fingertips. I mean, still totally ugly, obviously. "These are your hiking sticks, and they'll not only be a lot of use on the trail, but they'll also measure your progress. When I climbed Mount Fuji," she pauses, and the other girls ooh and ah appropriately, "you used a walking stick that you stamped with the elevation and station you'd passed. It's a really special way to remind yourself that you are making progress, even when it doesn't feel like it." At this, Georgia holds up the last walking stick that's still in her hands and shows off the elaborate symbols. Show off. "So for each milestone we achieve over the next 6 weeks, you'll earn a different colored leather thong to tie around the handle of your own walking stick." Georgia holds up her fist, where dyed leather thongs hang like a My Little Pony horsetail. "Be creative with it. I've had some girls add beads or wrap the grip in interesting patterns. You'll earn these for our first hike, first 5-miler, first overnight, first fire, first full pack, and first night on the trail." My goal, obviously, is to not earn any of these. Wonder what the faded pink one is for, though. Hopefully for quitting. "This is so amazing, Georgia," Beth enthuses. "I'll treasure mine forever." I am going to murder Beth at the first opportunity. That's it. And then I can tell you, she leaves real fast. She gets out of there. So that's Lola.
I was just going to say, I would like you to just keep reading the whole book because you do the voice so well because it comes from your head that I'm totally getting, I don't know if anybody else has seen Shit Creek, but I'm getting like a little bit Alexis vibes. And I just think
absolutely.
that's got to be like, so how much fun on a scale of 1 to 10 or to infinity was it to write Lola? Because she seems like a blast to write her character.
She's so much fun. So I never thought that I would be like a Lydia Bennet apologist, but the second that I started writing her voice, I was like, ooh, this is fun and disturbingly easy. I don't know if that says things about me that maybe it shouldn't, but I had so much fun giving her all of the jokes and all of the weird asides.
I think the best part about her is that she is so unapologetically almost mean, but not mean. So, because it's just how she genuinely feels about things. But when you write her character, I bet it's fun because you're just like all the things you've ever maybe thought in your snarky brain, You know, just when you're like at your worst mood and you're just like, now I just get to like pour it all out, you know, like I completely think that would be so fun.
Right? It's like the shower thoughts that we have, where like if you've had a weird interaction with somebody, but you only think of that amazing witty comeback an hour and a half later, and then you can't say it. Even if they're still there, you can't say it, or you look very, very strange.
Right. Like, why haven't you gotten over it?
Right?
Right.
But Lola doesn't have that lag time. She just is
comes
going to
out.
come right out. So it gets her in a lot of trouble, but I think it also helps her stick up for other people eventually, and herself always. So
Yeah, I completely relate to that because for my most recent YA, there was also a hiking scene. And so, like, and also my character Meg is very snarky about it in her head, like, oh, how great, we're going for a hike at night. And I love that that's like the same thing. Like, those are those experiences where I really do think that if you're not a natural hiker or a nature enthusiast like Beth, or Georgia, like then it's inside your brain where you're just like, okay, this is fun. This is what you do for fun.
Right.
You know, there's a lot of those, like, I shouldn't be out of breath. This is just for fun. Like, yes, absolutely. These shoes, my gold lame shoes, should be perfect.
right.
My
And
romper, my hat.
yeah, that she was going for the look. Like, you know that she looked up, like, what do Instagram influencers wear
Right.
on a trail?
What's the hiking
And
aesthetic?
she was like, yeah, floral romper. This is going to be great. If she lived in Denver, it would fit right in. I'm going to tell you that. We've once passed someone hiking barefoot with a lute. They were playing the lute as they were hiking. So just that's what I was drawing from.
That reminds me of, have you ever seen, there's a meme, and then we'll get back to the questions, but there's a meme that was talking about, you know, like because in Michigan, you know, we're all like, we love our North Face and things like that, you know, you're just always dressed the part, and it was like, look at you with your North Face and your, you know, your bladder that you're drinking from and all that, and they're like, my toddler can do that same hike in their flip-flops and carrying a Barbie, and you're just like, yep, that's totally.
That's so true.
That is very much yeah.
But we're the type, this is another hiking story. We once did this kind of hard hike, so we're all kitted out, right? We've got definitely the Camelback, the whole bit. And there was a guy hiking, carrying a Big Gulp in one hand and his child's Strider bike in the other, as the kid is like hopping along he's having fun.
Yeah.
And I just looked at my husband Ian and was like, we look like such idiots. So.
You were just feeling it.
I will say we did not see him at the end of the trail, so I'm assuming he turned around, 50 more steps. Because I would have.
Maybe his kid started hiking without him, and he
Right.
was like, I got to go find him, and then they just went back to
Or
the
he
parking
just
lot.
took the Strider bike
Could've been.
back down the hill.
Yeah.
It was up a hill the whole way.
Yeah. So what made you choose hiking? Of all the camps or programs.
I really like to hike. It's a big part of who we are in Denver. So I knew going in that it's something that I really love. But also, it's something that this character, on the face of it, she's going to be like, this is the worst thing in the world. Why would you do this to me? I can't think of anything worse than making my version of Lydia Bennet get dusty and sweaty and to be far away from like her car and the closest Taco Bell drive-through. Because that's something else that's in the book. I have Lola love Taco Bell more than anything else in the world. And that comes from a little piece of my soul.
Yeah. That like fits her whole persona too, of just like what's open at 3 a.m.
Yes.
When you're done burning down a yacht.
Yep.
Taco Bell.
She's gonna get 15 tacos.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be great.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my serious question, that if anybody who is a Jane Austen enthusiast, as I am, so obviously I already love everything about all of your books, but I am very curious as to why Lydia, because if you love Jane Austen, you kind of love to hate Lydia in Pride and Prejudice.
Absolutely.
She ruins everything.
Always.
Right, so what made you think like, yeah, I'm going to write a book from her perspective and make people love her? Because, I did love her from the very first page, but what made you think like, yeah, I'm going to pick the worst one?
So I think I have the offhand answer and then I have a more serious answer.
Oh, give both.
But so the first part is I never thought that I was going to want to write a story about Lydia. This was it never entered my mind that there would be another, I mean, it's like the Jane Austen cinematic universe, right? When I was writing Marnie, it was going to be Marnie only. It was only going to be being Mary Bennet. And then the very first time that Lola comes screeching onto the page, I mean, literally screeching onto the page because she drives over a field and pulls up next to Marnie. There was something about her that I was just like, who are you? You're amazing. And that's a weird feeling. It's a great feeling to have as an author, to have something that, I mean, this is in my own head, it's my own world that I've created, and she surprised me. And I really, really loved that. So that was what started it, is I was really intrigued by this character who I didn't think that I would like. I thought that she was just gonna be a foil to Marnie. And so that's like the one that made me be like, whoa, there's something here. But then as I started thinking more and more about it, I started thinking about the source material, and that, when you think of Pride and Prejudice, Lydia, I mean, she is the one who ruins it all. Like, when they get that letter that Lydia has run off with Wickham and the whole family is ruined, Lydia is the cautionary tale for what happens if you are impetuous, if you are maybe somebody who doesn't think through their actions really clearly. But the other thing about Lydia is that she's 15, and she has this incredible responsibility put on her. She's 15, and she was preyed on by an older man who had a history of preying on young women to try and get their money. And she is going to bear the consequences of that for the rest of her life, for a mistake that she made as a teen, a pretty young teen, right? And so I wanted to give her a chance at redemption. I wanted to give her a chance to say, yeah, I screwed up, and I'm probably gonna screw up again, but it shouldn't ruin the rest of my life. And it shouldn't be, it shouldn't be my grave. So that's really what I wanted to really show, that you can be messy, you can make mistakes over and over again, but you can always wake up the next morning and choose to do better. And so that's what I wanted to see Lydia do, my Lola. Yeah.
Well, and I love that you said redemption, because that's like my number one pet peeve. Mm-hmm. And obviously Jane Austen is gone. We can't get mad at her. But, that's why fan fiction exists, right? Mm-hmm. Because you read a story, and as authors in particular, I think since we were little kids, we read a story, and sometimes it just feels so unjust, mm-hmm. the way that certain side characters have been treated. And Lydia is definitely one of those that, even at the end of Pride and Prejudice, she's still unapologetic about everything that mm-hmm. she did. She's not sorry for it. She feels amazing. Look at my ring. I'm the one who's married, mm-hmm. And I think that the best part about your story is that you were able to kind of go from that moment and have her grow up, because we don't get to see her grow up and change and and we still want her to be the amazing Lola/Lydia that she is. You still want her to have that snarky inner voice and hate hiking and all that stuff. We still want that about her. But we also want to see her grow up and realize, beyond what she experienced, beyond the older boyfriend or the mistakes that she's made. Yep.
Yeah, and it was important to me that she didn't lose her spark. I didn't want to be writing a story of a girl that learns to be quieter. I wanted it to be a story of a girl who learns how to project her voice in a way that isn't just hurting everyone around her, but that is speaking up for those around her. Because she's somebody who, I think she loves the spotlight, she's an introvert, or she's an extrovert, and she's always going to be someone who wants the spotlight, but she can do it in a way that isn't destructive. And so I really didn't want her to get quiet at the end. And I was very, very lucky that my editor agreed. She really was saying, no, we want her to still, she even pushed me in edits with the book to have her make more mistakes farther into the story. So I was having Lola hiking faster or not make some of the mistakes that she makes in the end. Yeah. But my editor was like, no, let's see her do that, but respond better. Learn how to recover in a healthier way instead of, burning down a yacht in anger. So
That's why editors are great, because I'm also the same way where I like tried to fix things really early on because I don't like to put my characters through pain.
You like them.
I love them, and I don't want them to feel sad for the whole thing. And my editor is the same way. She'll be like, you know what, they still can't have it fixed, or it will be a much shorter story. But yeah, when readers complain about like slow burns or like, oh, I hated how they made the mistake, and you're just like, yeah, but if we didn't, it would have been done on page 10, you know?
And not only that, like none of us are perfect.
Right.
And I don't want to read a perfect character.
Right.
I want to read a character who really can screw up, but can still recover from it. And still, like I said, I've young kids. We say this quote from my forever favorite, Anne of Green Gables, a lot, that tomorrow is a new day with no mistakes in it. And it just, I thought of that a lot with Lola, that even if you're doing these really, really off the wall things that you regret, that you can wake up tomorrow and decide to do a little better.
Yeah, it's very like Scarlett O'Hara. Like, man, I've really messed this up, but like tomorrow, we'll fix it tomorrow. Yeah, I love that. I mean, because as humans, we don't fix ourselves overnight.
No, and we're not perfect from the beginning.
Right.
I think that's my thing too, is I do want to show characters being truly, I don't think unlikable is the right word, but you want to like shake them sometimes. Be like, come on, like get it together.
I mean, really, the word is real, but
Yes.
people do not like when we're real sometimes.
No.
Yeah.
No. Especially when women characters are real sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
They get very impatient with us. So, again, I promise this is my last Jane Austen question for right now, but so she wrote brilliantly, like, we have this conversation in, the writer spaces about how she wrote contemporary romance. I mean, that's, for her time, it was contemporary romance. Now it's historical, but at the time, it was exactly how she felt about things, and it was, it included satire and everything else. But now we have authors remaking it, reimagining it. How did you find taking her characters and putting them in present day? Like, did you find that to be, how did you age that? Because, I mean, the way that I feel like Lydia and Lola perfectly match as far as like how I would imagine Lydia's personality to be. How did you make that contemporary? Like, how did you give her a little bit Alexis? Like, what made you think like that fits Lydia?
Well, I will say that I think the thing with Jane Austen that makes her still appealing today, 200 and some odd years later, is that the characters still resonate today. There's still people who are trying to, figure out where they fit in the world, figure out where they fit in their family, figure out what they want to do with their lives. And I think that just becomes something that you can so easily take those characters that she wrote and like I did, plop them in San Francisco and let them go wild. It worked pretty easily. I will say I had a lot of fun thinking about, so the Bennets, the Bennets in Pride and Prejudice they're landed gentry. They've got some money, even though Mrs. Bennet is so consumed with marrying her daughters off. Really, they weren't struggling that much. And so we were trying to think of, I brainstormed a lot with my husband about like, who would they be today? Who is the new idea of kind of this landed gentry, which is how we figured out Silicon Valley, because also it would be a lot of fun to kind of poke fun at the Silicon Valley archetype of the, venture capitalist and all of that. So
I like how you had oh my gosh, I just totally blanked on his name, but you were talking about like it was like the jet lifestyle.
Oh,
like
PJ. That
PJ
PJ lifestyle.
Thank you. Yes,
private
the
jet.
PJ. Yes, the private jet lifestyle.
Obviously, I live that lifestyle. Private jet all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But yes, I totally oh yeah, I can see that.
Right, people who have access to funds that feel for, the standard American, just like so out of touch. Can you imagine just being like, I'm going to take the PJ to Monterey for the day? That doesn't happen.
Right.
But for this certain set of people, it does. And back then they were going to balls every day. They were, what was that? There's another meme thing where it says that Pride and Prejudice is just a bunch of people going to lunch at other people's houses. Like they were like, that's all it is.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong because none of them had to work. So
right. Yeah.
So that's who they are today, is my San Francisco kind of like jet set.
Yeah, like if you just happen to shoot a flare gun at,
Yeah.
what did she say? It's like not really a yacht.
Yeah.
Barely a yacht.
Barely. It's like,
Yeah. Who cares? It's fine. All right, we're right about 7. So we can open it up to questions from the audience, unless you guys are feeling really super shy, in which case then I'll just keep coming up with questions. Because I have all sorts of things to ask, but also it's mostly about Jane Austen. So we can also open it up to anybody who has any thoughts about anything. And then the only thing is you have to speak into the microphone that Emily has, because we're recording it. So
yes.
don't be shy.
So my sister lives in China, and so I'm hoping that she can see this because I'm going to text her about it.
So we're
a
doing
lot
it for
to
her
tell to watch
sister, so
it.
you have to speak into the microphone. No pressure.
Yeah, yeah.
Somebody has to be the first person.
Haley Hannah, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, okay. It's always the front row that will be the first person.
Well, I'm not asking
Ooh.
about Jane Austen, but
Totally
I want
fine.
to ask about writing a book. Not that I want to, but
I don't recommend it. No.
do you write the book and then your editor reads it and then makes corrections, or do you show it to your editor during the process so you can make the corrections
Yeah.
while you're writing the second part of it?
No, and I'm sure everybody kind of develops their editor relationship. With mine, I tend to be a pretty fast writer, so I wrote the whole thing, sent it off. She got back to me with lots of changes, sent it back to her, and then that happened about 5 more times. It's a lot, but each time it gets a little different, right? Sometimes you do line edits, proofread, you do all these different sorts of edits. So yeah, that's how it works. And it takes a long time. I sold this book in 2020. And it's now not that. 2023.
So Marnie and Lola are very different characters. Which one do you identify with more and why?
So the company line that I always give is that I am very similar to Marnie. I'm an introvert. I can be a little awkward, and if there's a corner in a room, I'm gonna find that corner and glue myself to it. And I think that's true to an extent, but I will say that my husband just read this final version of Lola at last, and he was like, ma'am, you are Lola. I don't know how you're saying you're Marnie. All of the things that Lola said, Lola is my id. She's if I didn't have a filter and age to tell me not to say things. And it was really fun. I think that's why it was so easy to write Lola. Yeah.
She's what you wish you could say.
Right? But I have the good sense not to. Did you have a question?
I wanted to ask, what, in particular about Pride and Prejudice made you, think, oh, hey, I want to write books kind of based off the characters from that?
I love that question.
I do too.
Lots of things. So I will say that I saw Pride and Prejudice before I read it. I read it in high school, but I had seen an adaptation of it in the 90s. And it just made me feel so happy and so just fulfilled. There were things in it that I wanted to live in that world forever. And I don't know if you experience that with books, where you're reading a book and you wish that the story wouldn't end and you could live in it forever. And I felt that about Pride and Prejudice, and about some other ones, Secret Garden, Anne of Green Gables, as I've mentioned probably several times. Those were books that I wish I could live in. And so I would, as a kid, as a young adult, picture myself in there. And I think that just became me then writing stories. Yeah.
I think the awesome part, too, about Jenny's books is that there are a lot of Pride and Prejudice reimaginings, but they're all, Elizabeth and Darcy.
Yes.
Not all of them, but a lot of them are. There are a few other ones out there, but I love that you've taken sisters, because the sisters are such an important part of the story, but also they just are there. Nothing really ever happens with them, except for Lydia, I guess, but she's there for us to hate her. So I think it's wonderful that we get something different, because we've got 200 years of people rewriting Elizabeth and Darcy. I love that you have them established, they're there, but also let me tell you what happens with Lydia.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're making you run.
I know. I've planned this all. We're just gonna.
So is there a third book to the series? And if so, which sister will you do? And number 2 question is, once you're done with Pride and Prejudice, when are we going to see Anne of Green Gables somewhere?
That was
Someday.
my question too.
Someday, Anne of Green Gables. No, I'm not writing about any of the other sisters. It felt like I had told their story because in this one, we also get a lot of the younger sister, Kat's story, because she and Lola are twins. And so I kind of thought of them as, they're a pair. I'm telling both of their stories. And then the older sisters, they've aged out of YA. They're all married and having kids. I could see, I've had a lot of people ask me if I would write the older sister, my Lizzie and Lizzie and Darcy, sorry, if I would tell their story. And I think it'd be fun, but I haven't thought that hard about it. And then if I were to do another classic, it would probably, like I was saying, Secret Garden or Anne of Green Gables are 2 perennial favorites. So someday I'll figure out a way into Anne that's the one that I don't think I improved on Pride and Prejudice in any way. I just told it from a different perspective. Thank you, Shelley. I was like from a different way. But right now I've never had an idea of how to approach Anne of Green Gables in a different way. Because who can top Gilbert Blythe in the 1980s?
I was going to say, you almost would have to pick. No, you couldn't. You almost have
can't.
to maybe do Diana or something.
Yeah. Oh, but then it's not Gilbert.
No,
I see.
it's
Really, I just
not.
want to write about Gilbert Blythe, everybody. So.
Yeah, really, we just want only Gilbert's story. I mean, we want Anne to be there too, but that's a great.
Mostly Gilbert.
That would be really. I haven't thought of it that way. At least with Pride and Prejudice, like we said, you have the sisters, so you can kind of do your own spin on it. We don't know a whole lot about them. That's really wonderful, but it does get challenging when you have beloved characters and you don't really want to mess with those.
Yeah, and I like I said, a lot of these stories come from, you think, oh, I could approach this differently. I could have this twist on it to make it compelling. And someday I'll think of that for Anne of Green Gables, but not yet.
Before we got here, we had coffee, and I already told her, I pitched her my plan of her writing. First you do children's for Anne of Green Gables, then you go up to middle grade, then you go up to YA, and then you have to do adult because that's how the series goes.
That's how, the books go that way.
She's just going to start with picture books, work all the way up. We've got it all figured out.
I own some Anne of Green Gables picture books that I read to my boys and a Pride and Prejudice one too. Yeah. Oh man, I'd love that. Are there any other questions? Like I promised, we're going back and forth.
So I don't know, this might not be very bright, but I love to write, and I can't even imagine what it would. I mean, I know you have Pride and Prejudice to go from that for your characters, but how long did it take you to develop your idea for how you wanted each character? How do you develop your characters? I mean, how long does that take?
Everybody does it a little different. Erin, I would love to hear what it is for you too. For Being Mary Bennet, I worked on that a lot longer. I wasn't agented yet when I was working on Being Mary Bennet, and I was also very, very pregnant. So in fits and starts is how I wrote Being Mary Bennet. That character made a lot of sense to me, but the characters around her did a lot of changing from draft 0 to the finished product. With Lola at Last, as I was saying, that one, it came fast. There's a lot of people talk about the second book being a nightmare. Your second book is always really hard because you've sold your first, it's out in the world, people have expectations, and then you are terrified that you can't meet them. For me, that's not what happened, but don't worry, it's happening for the third book. So it's still happening, it was just delayed.
You just had a reprieve.
Right? So how about for you? How long, what comes first for you, plot or character?
I think I'm probably pretty similar to you. I do character driven for sure. So I'll meet the character first, and then I'll have the ending scene pop up in my brain, and I'm like, that's where I'm working towards. And but I do dual point of view. So I do the male and female, and I write romance. So it's like I'm going to give each one of those characters their arc, and so they each have their own growth through the book, and then at the end they unite together. But so it's totally fast, just the characters. That's all I know about. I can't tell you what they're going to do for a while, But I get really excited, like I've got a book, but really I've just got characters, But
It's the same for me.
You just really like them.
Yep.
And I can tell you, I mean, when I do my synopsis that I send to my editor or my agent, it's like 25, well, no, I'm going to say it's probably like 75% backstory that I came up with about the characters and like what color they love and like all the details about them. And then like 25% about what I think the rest of the book is going to be about because I just get so excited about the characters.
I'm the same way. The thing that I've had to work on most as a writer is giving my characters something to do.
Yeah.
If I had free reign, it would be characters like having witty banter back and forth for 400 pages.
Yes.
But I mean, that would be terrible. And I know that. It took me a long time to know that. I think I wrote several attempts where nothing happens. It's like the Seinfeld of writing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I start with the characters, and I often know if it's going to be an idea that I'm going to pursue if I can picture the last scene.
Yeah,
because
it's
I
that
often
last
think about
scene
last
for you.
scene. Yep.
And then you just kind of like work your way back and you're like, okay, now how are we going to get there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes you get there really direct and you're like, well, and that's when your editor will pull you back and be like, nope, that's too direct.
Yeah.
That's only 25 pages there. You need to go back to the beginning and really add some, left turns in there.
And I think the other big thing with writing that we talk a lot about in the writer world, but outside of that is how much you have to rewrite. So you have an idea. The first draft, is probably crap because that's just how it works. That's the point, right? You're just getting everything
It's all witty
out.
banter.
Right. But then the story takes shape in drafts 2 and 3 and 4. That's when the story actually becomes a book. So that's why I was calling it a draft 0. It feels like that first draft is me figuring out who my characters are and what they really want. If I may have plotted out that they're going to be in a situation like they're going to order a coffee at the coffee shop. And then when you get into that coffee shop, you realize, no, she's going to turn over the oat milk on the floor and have a temper tantrum. It's just, you don't know until you get there. So
Yeah.
That's always fun and daunting at the same time.
I always think that like the most depressing part of writing is when the author gets to the middle of the book. Like you can tell when they've gotten to the middle.
Yes.
Because you've run out of steam on all like the fun, getting to know all the characters and their backstory and the witty banter that you already came up with. And you've got like that ending scene in sight and you realize like, oh my gosh, I have to write like 50% of the book still to get to that scene.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? And that's when all like the problems have to come in and, the left turns and all that. But at that point, you're just like, can't we just like call it here?
Right? Oh, man.
Yeah.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Just write like 4 months later.
Yeah. You're at 45% and you're like, I think this is the end right here. Yeah.
I write in it's a program called Scrivener, so I can see my progress. And when you're still in like the orange, but you're like, oh no, I have to write 60,000 more words. What am I gonna do? Let's talk about their grocery list.
Right. This is the really sad part is that there's something called NaNoWriMo, which is like write a book in November. And a lot of us, well, I don't know if you ever did, but
I have.
That's where you kind of get like started. Like I'm going to write a whole book in November, and it's a really hard challenge. But it's actually the goal is 50,000 words. And in my brain, because I did that for so many years, I've kind of like programmed myself like 50,000 words is the end of the book. But when you write a YA, it has to be at least like 75, 80,000 words. Adult is more than that. And so then you're really like, I'm almost at 50,000, and that's when you hit it, and you're like, nope, it's not the end. You still have like 35,000 more words to write, and that's when it really just bums you out.
Yeah.
I always have like a period of mourning where I think my whole family can tell, like, oh, we're only halfway there, because I'm just like, I feel so good, and then all of a sudden I look at the number and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can tell when I'm deep in writing or editing because things will happen like, I don't know if anyone has seen Arrested Development. I know some of you have. Where like George Michael has to go behind his aunt, turning off the gas stove and being like, oh God, has she cooked the ham? Has she done this? That's what I become.
Yeah.
Where I've like walked away and left the fridge door open, and I feel like Ian is walking behind me being like, shut that, make sure she has her keys before she walks out. It's like my head is just absolutely in this story that I both love and hate, and I have to keep going until it's done.
And that's the hard part, because you still have so much more to go.
Yeah.
but you're still turned off. I've done that where I've had like markers in like the spoons and stuff like that. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
why did I even have a marker?
Yep. Well, we might have time, do you think, for one more question if we have it, or if not?
I think one more, yeah, if we've got one.
I just had a quick one. I was just wondering, like, when you're writing a book and you happen to be out and not with what you're using to write your book on, do you carry something with you, like a tape recorder or a pad of paper to write ideas down, or, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, when something comes to you?
So I have a notebook that I write down the weirdest lines. I'll tell you one of them I've wanted to use for years is, he looks like a French fry smells. I've wanted to use that as a description
Such a good line.
for somebody that you don't like for a long time. It's never worked. I've tried to shove it into several manuscripts and it's always taken out. So I have a notebook that I carry around that I write down character ideas, lines. For me, it's mostly lines. I tend to think of fun lines. So, yeah.
I have my notes app on my phone because if I'm like in a classroom, I am a teacher and I'll be in a classroom and I'll hear somebody's name and I'm like, ooh, I like that name. And
Oh,
I'll
yeah, I do that
use
too.
that in a future book.
Yep.
Yeah, or I'll be listening to music and I take screenshots of the song. Like, oh,
Yep.
I'm gonna save that song to write to later.
Yep.
You know, I remember a specific scene while I'm driving and I'm constantly like pinching the screenshot. Remember that later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Technology helps.
I take my laptop, though, almost everywhere that I go. And because I think that's kind of when you're a parent and a writer, I mean, you just have to write whenever you can, because for me at least, there's no being like, I'm walking out the door and going to my office and bye, kids. I mean, they're right there asking for a snack and lately to watch Gabby's Dollhouse. And, it's constant. So you just have to do what you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so we will be signing books over here. Literati's still out there. You can grab a book if you haven't yet, and then you can just head right out this door that I'm about to open on your way out. Thank you so much.